So this is the CI/CD UX meeting for, what is today? June the 2nd. It's great. It's June. I'm going to go and read a couple of FYI announcements. So first one is that OKRs, they're still here, they're happening. And I sent you all a reminder to complete the training. So we have the LinkedIn trainings for one, the diversity and inclusion. It's not a LinkedIn training, it's an internal training. And the other one about how to make the user experience happen as a team. I recommend you use Focus Friday to do that. And if, of course, you have any questions or anything that needs to be reprioritized or shaped around, just reach out and we can talk about if you're not able to prioritize that this week. I'll jump to the next one, the foundation survey. I'm not sure if everyone answered or if you were not present yesterday, also in the UX call. So the folks are gathering more feedback on how the create build style, anyways, the pajamas life cycle, component life cycle works, because it's a part of their KRs to improve that process. So if you haven't done that yet, do so, help them out. And even if you haven't, I think maybe Daniel, or maybe you're the only one that hasn't created a component or used that. I think it's still super worth to give that feedback so that they have an idea of how that looks like for designers that, don't have as much experience with pajamas. Last one, excuse me. We now are part of the product manager interview process. So I created that merge request, adding product designers to be able to interview PMs together with the EM interview. So it'll be a duo, a shared interview with engineering managers, and moving forward, we'll be able to be part of the conversation as well. So it's the same way as PMs today interview product designers, we're going to interview them. If you haven't completed interview training yet, I think you're all either currently in the process or have to start. Please do so. Try to prioritize because, as you know, I'm interviewing folks. But also what we've decided is that if you haven't completed the interview training, you will shadow your manager or another designer that has completed, and that will count, excuse me, as part of your interview training process. So I'll pause for all the announcements if anyone has any questions or any comments.
I'm excited to start shadowing. Hopefully there will be more opportunities because of that, because I know we're hiring for product manager roles.
Then I think you can jump to the stage group announcement. So then you have the first point on the agenda.
Yes. Yeah, I just added, I shared in on Slack already, but wanted to call out the feature mapping that I did for release. That was really good to me because I only made it, I think last week, but it already helped me have a much stronger visibility of all the pages and all the usability issues that we have on the release pages. Especially for me working on environments, having a map of everything environments related has been super helpful. So yeah, thanks for the nice reaction to it. I'll definitely add it to the handbook soon. Still not sure how, because this format with FigJam is also super useful. So ideally I would keep both, but yeah, feel free to leave any feedback. With that said, I'm working on some improvements for the environments page. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen to show what I'm going through, and maybe you can also give me some feedback on this. Right, so the current issue I'm working on is an issue to add a new information to the environments table called deployment tier. The problem is the environments table is not in good shape right now, to the point where if we add any other field, it just breaks. It no longer has the space to add anything else. So the MVC proposal I'm going to forward, I'm going to share on the issue, is just add like environment and tier here, and then a label underneath, which is not great. But we currently have this feature and it's not visible. So I think it's a valid compromise for now. The solution I want to get through requires a small refactor of the environment table. So essentially, first thing that's very visibly broken are the environment folders, right? Like even on an empty state, it looks really bad. And I figure out there's one CSS class that you change and it just fixes it. So that will be the first step. The next step is this nested overview within the folders is useful to show you that these are part of the review folder, but it also breaks the layout really badly, right? Because now you have the same table that is aligned to the wrong grid. So basically, the proposal is to, instead of having it nested by space, we nest it by color with this gray background. And then in order to be able to add a new field, we just make the table full screen, because at this point, it's already breaking in a really large 16-inch screen. So imagine for users with much smaller screens that have the sidebar open. So we make it full screen. We move the show all button here to the top. So it's also something else that's breaking the layout, because it's something centered on a table. It doesn't make a lot of sense. So we move it here to the top, and then we're able to add the deployment tier very easily. And it's much more cleaner visually. I was just wrapping this up this morning. I created a couple of issues already, which with each one of these changes. But to be honest, most of these I prototyped in the browser, just changing CSS classes. So I imagine a front-end developer would be able to do this in one MR. There's a bunch of other environments fixes that are already in line. But in my opinion, this yields so much gain with so little effort that honestly, like, it should just shoot to the top of the list, because it's very easy to implement. And that's me.
I have a couple of questions, Danielle. First, I wanted to kind of understand what is the goal of this cleanup? What is the that you want to achieve with? I think how did you call the first one? Didn't take note of that, but yeah, the tire, environment tire.
Yeah,
What?
the goal is to add the environment here to the table. So here in this example, right, this customer, it's just a mock-up, but the customer has an environment called public site that is actually the production environment. They set up the tier as the environment called public site is actually the production, but today they have no way to see this. They just see the names. And there are use cases of customers that have environments with names that are automatically created. So they're just long IDs that don't make any sense. So they would need these features to be able to actually see which environments are production or QA or development ones. And yeah, today there's no space to add this to the table because it just breaks it. So we can do this, just add a badge underneath the name that works. But the table is still very hard to read. So with a few small changes, we can make a big improvement to the page.
Okay, I understand now. Then I think it will make sense to my next couple of comments. So one, I don't think this is even a table. Probably if they change that, but in the markup, I'm not sure which components they are using. So that's something for you to see in a line. But my last comment is about the layout, how you change like the full width of the page. I'm not sure if you already checked that, but you're limited by how the user sets the layout setting of GitLab in the preferences. So for example, some of the pages you cannot remove that the gap, right? The gutter, say, of the layout, because that's how it will show in every page. So not only this one. So just keep that in mind, that you'll still be limited if the user says, I want to see the gutters. And if not, then everything's full screen. Have you checked that?
No, I didn't know there was that setting. Thanks for bringing that up. I will check that. Yeah.
Yeah, check that, because I think that's in terms of layout, that's the most impactful thing for you, from what I can see. Yeah.
To be honest, a conversation I had with Orit back, like already some time ago, like we both agree that this likely shouldn't be a table. We should have a better way to display this information, because the table also doesn't prioritize anything, right? Everything has the same importance here. And most of the information is clipped, so you have to hover over to see the full names. So the layout is already breaking, even if it's not visually breaking, like it doesn't hold this much content anymore. But that's quite a big change, so it's not something I would propose right now.
Yeah, this is very painful view. I don't think it informs anyone of anything, and you cannot, as you're saying, yeah, extend the right functionalities. I'm gonna do some research because I know that someone did some redesign of this in the past and it was not implemented. If you were not, none of you folks here in the call, like Vitika or Nadia, I think it was someone working maybe in the plant team. I've seen something like that, so I'll try to find here and give you as a reference.
Thanks.
That
Yeah, because I can look for it.
yeah. So
I'm
maybe
not sure, but it could have been Amelia for the incidents table or something like that, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just dreaming it up. So just a guess.
yeah.
Yeah, this is super cool, Danielle. Thanks for sharing. I was gonna ask a question like, have you considered redesigning this so it's not a table, so we can actually give more weight to some things that are important, and maybe even hide some things or like make it possible to expand additional information or whatever. But this is of course like really far off vision and it would be a big project.
Yeah, there's also a really interesting discussion going on about how we prioritize the concept of environments versus the concept of deployments. So it might be the case that we not only changed how it's visually represented, but also what we are giving more weight in the UI and how we are communicating things. So it's definitely a higher level approach. Although I want to be giant, of course, it's not that big, but um, it will benefit from some more long-term thinking.
Okay. As long as you're planning to go with a table-like layout, I wanted to make you aware of this refactoring work that Peyton was involved in CI. So the jobs index page and pipeline index page table that you see, Peyton has refactored those. And in the process, we have also collaboratively like redesigned it. So he has made, from a front-end engineer perspective, he has also made some very thoughtful decisions in the process. And I have kind of highlighted those in the issue that I have tagged. So maybe you could take some inspirations from there. And I see that you're also running into a problem which is very similar to ours, which is how different content is truncated and broken up into parts in the table-like view, and the number of action buttons at the end. I saw like there are about 6 actions in the screenshot that you were showing.
Yeah,
So in CI, what we are doing,
yeah.
come again?
Sorry, there's already more actions to come. So that's
Yeah.
another thing we have to look at.
Right. So I also kind of anticipated a similar problem, and that's when I took a break and I involved Jeremy from Foundations, and I started working on a different proposal for action buttons specifically in the table, which was let's put the most, the most interacted with actions up front and everything else in a kebab menu that could be accessed from a dropdown. So maybe you can try that approach as well. It's all mentioned in this issue that I've tagged.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful. We'll take a look.
Yeah, I think there's, I'm looking Figma, Danielle, and I think a lot of designers tried to conquer the tables and the list view in the past. I would say the best really way for you to find this information, just ask in Slack and then share your problem and see if someone has worked in this in the past, because I'm sure that there are some investigation and even some research done there on how to improve this component, but also the usability, the discoverability of all these actions. So checking with the folks before you move forward with proposals and changes. I think that's a good approach.
Will do. Thanks.
I think Nadia, are you next? Yes, that's Nadia.
Yeah. So I will just quickly go over those issues and share my screen probably as well. All right. So one big thing I've been working on for the past 2 weeks was the Auto DevOps design sprint. And we collaborated across several different stages: configure, secure, pipeline authoring. And in the design sprint, there were product designers, engineers, and product managers as well. And together we tried to work out work out what are the main problems with Auto DevOps, what is the vision that we want to move towards, because we kind of have this vision that Auto DevOps is this magic that allows you to automatically enable everything that you need for like a good good DevOps workflow. So it kind of automates for you setting up security and tests and delivery and whatnot. But in reality, it doesn't really happen. So it doesn't really work. It works for some specific cases, but it very easily breaks. It's kind of a pretty fragile solution, but the idea is very powerful. So let's have this feature that makes it easy to have all of the amazing GitLab features on by default. So you just create a project, and out of the box, you have the whole CI/CD pipeline working, basically, which enables all of GitLab's magic. So like before this design sprint, when the whole discussions around auto DevOps started, I was just convinced that auto DevOps needs to work together with CI/CD to offer like an easy to understand package of tools basically for automation, for workflow automation. Because right now we have auto DevOps and we have CI/CD, and they're completely disconnected as far as user experience is concerned. And but they're competing tools. They're solving the same job to be done. For some reason, the user experience is just completely disconnected, where we don't even consider each other much when we're kind of moving forward with new features and so on. So feel free to look through this epic and read through this summary, because, and also, have I added the video here? No, but I will add the video. I will share it in the CI/CD channel, because we talked a lot about CI and deployments and things that you would be probably interested in learning about, like how what is their vision, because they configure with auto DevOps now. I think they're thinking on focusing on deployments primarily, and using auto DevOps as a way to like automate your deployment setup. That's one thing that would probably be interesting from the release point of view. And then for CI, we generally talked about how to align the user experience for auto DevOps and CI/CD, because essentially these are pipelines. So we have different kinds of pipelines in GitLab. You can have an auto DevOps pipeline, or you can have a CI/CD pipeline that you just define manually in your YAML. And now there's also compliance pipelines, which is like they don't have a separate UI or a place to create that pipeline, but it is a different kind of type of pipeline. So we weren't able to create a prototype of auto DevOps solution in the end. That was the initial goal, to create a prototype to test with users. But the main outcome was that we, at least for me, from like my point of view from pipeline authoring, we aligned on having like a single experience, like smooth experience in the UI for onboarding, for like GitLab automation onboarding. So eventually we would like to have one way for you to set up your project with automation, and then you would be able to choose, like, do I want something super automatic like this, and you select auto DevOps, or you can build out your own custom pipeline. And in the UI, it would all work kind of seamlessly, whether you use this type of pipeline or that type of pipeline. And probably, so like some of the early steps that we're thinking of taking is, for example, showing the auto DevOps configuration in the pipeline editor. So right now, when you have auto DevOps enabled, you just see the empty state for the pipeline editor, and it says like, hey, create CI/CD. So create the CI/CD configuration. But it doesn't really make sense. So it makes sense to provide a way to create a CI/CD config if you want to switch from auto DevOps to running something fully custom. But it's a pipeline, and it's a configuration of a pipeline. Even if it's automatic, it needs to be explicit, and like users need to be aware, okay, this is the thing that is actually running. If you don't want to edit it, that's great. If you want everything to work automatically, but we need to at least show it. So like things like that. And from CI perspective, since we were talking about making auto DevOps pipelines kind of show up in the UI and run and just as any other pipelines. So that's also some consideration for the CI team. So like the main thing we agreed on, let's keep each other in the loop on literally everything that we're doing, like any new features, because there's likelihood that there will be some overlap, or maybe there's some potential synergy for us. So yeah, that was a big one. And yeah, and I know we don't have a lot of time, so I want to leave some more time, but I'll just skip the second point. And I wanted to highlight the collaboration with the growth team that we're doing right now. That hopefully will make like CI onboarding easier as well. So we have this widget in MRs where we're suggesting to try GitLab pipelines. And right now it's broken. And an easy fix would be to just redirect users to the pipeline editor. And we're working out like the best copy with the growth team and so on. So a lot of interesting things generally are happening with CI onboarding. And next, we're planning to create a guided walkthrough. So as an MVC, you would click on the CTA in the widget, and it will just take you to the pipeline editor. And then as the next step, we'll be collaborating with the growth team on creating a walkthrough with little popovers throughout the UI, so we can guide the user around the pipeline editor UI, because it's starting to become a bit like feature rich, to the point where we feel like it could be helpful to provide some extra guidance during initial onboarding. Some questions I see here around auto DevOps.
Yeah, I did not know. I mean, this is the first time I'm realizing that the pipeline doesn't show up anywhere. And what you just said, it makes absolute sense that it should appear in the place of the regular YAML file, and it's just that it was populated automatically, like the system did it for you. But you should be able to go ahead, make modifications, or even just replace it with something else. So yeah. That has to be streamlined.
Yeah, it's like a difficult problem, because it's not as easy as just showing it there, because it's kind of a bit of a different implementation. So it's a pipeline, but it has different processing. But it is possible still. So we're starting those discussions right now, and I think it does show up in the UI, but I know for sure that an auto DevOps pipeline shows up in the pipelines page, like in the pipelines list. But I don't know how it shows up in the pipeline graph, like what the detail view looks like. And from the pipeline authoring perspective, it's a complete black box. There's no way for you to like, well, you can probably go somewhere you can go in the repo and chase down those files, and then it will break everything. Most likely, it's very difficult to customize. So it's going to be a big project, but yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you all are aware, because as they start making changes to auto DevOps, we will need to think about like how it affects our own stage work.
Okay.
Thanks for sharing this, Nadia. I just want to make a quick comment that auto DevOps is essentially a pipeline that is configured automatically and it's not very visible for the user, right?
Yeah, and I think it even is enabled by default for some projects, and there's not a lot of visibility into what it does, but I think it handles deployments, or attempts to handle deployments in some way.
Right, because in terms of automation, I remembered the pipeline templates and packages that you were working on, like on small building blocks that you can use to build your CI pipeline. And thinking of automation between a spectrum from 0 to 100, it looks like auto DevOps tried to go to 100, but maybe the solution you were working on is like somewhere in between. So maybe the ideal state is actually somewhere in between, where the user has some control, and we also offer automation. but we don't try to magically solve everything, because then it ends up breaking for a lot of use cases.
Yeah, so that was kind of the agreement at the end of the sprint as well, that we probably would need to reduce the scope a little bit and not attempt to make it work for everything. And I think that's why they're thinking that maybe deployments will be it, because it seems to provide a lot of value, and it would be easier for us to automate that as well.
Right. I'll go over the results as well. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
In the interest of time, I have declared mine as read only, so Hannah can talk about hers.
You can go ahead.
Sorry,
Abhi.
Mithika. Yeah, let's stay, please.
We have 2 minutes. I'll give it you the floor because you already answered my question. So please
Okay.
use those 2 minutes wisely.
All right. So there's nothing big that I want to share today because the large effort of the UX scorecard exercise around variables, it's still underway. I've added the link to the Epic, which has the dovetail link, the discussion guide link, and everything else. So in case you want to just go ahead and have a look at the progress, you can. And another small effort, a very small effort that I want to talk about is a collaboration that happened on the fly. So Peyton was working on the refactoring of the jobs table, and he created this issue for UX feedback. We were already aligned because we have been a part of many discussions in the past regarding what problems we were facing regarding related to the table, the pipeline and jobs table on the pipeline and jobs index pages. So this was pretty easy for us, and it happened so that I quickly reviewed it. I gave my inputs, created 2 issues which were closed the same day. I mean, they were worked on the same day and also kind of implemented. So that was very interesting. And here's a Slack link where Peyton has posted a small GIF or video. I don't remember exactly, that shows how the new implementation looks now. And it also shows a glimpse of a skeleton loader that we have added to the table that would appear. Maybe it's in production already. I didn't check. Yeah, that's pretty much all.
I had a question about the UX scorecard. Do you have a timeline for when you're planning to complete it?
The plan was to wind up interviews sometime this week, and mostly that's going to happen. There were a couple of delays in responses, and we are trying to chase the participants. So they're scheduled for this Friday. But this, I mean, the deadline is, I think, for the next milestone. But I mean, if I keep on continuing to work on this, this should be done by the coming week. We would be ready with the recommendations, the insights and the recommendations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. No rush. I'm just curious, because we're starting to to think about variables. Yeah, but I talked to Dove about it, by the way, and it's not going to be an immediate priority for us to start pumping out new improvements. I think we're just going to focus for the first milestone or 2 for sure on the existing issues that are known, bug fixes and some improvements that are more straightforward. And we really want to take the time to first consume the insights that you can create with this scorecard, and then also we're planning to do our own problem validation first to learn about it, because at this point feels like we're not very knowledgeable about variables.
Right. So if you go to this, maybe it's not a part of this particular epic, but there's an issue separately that's about proposing recommendations based on the learnings from this scorecard exercise. Mm-hmm. So that would involve a pipeline execution team, that is Jackie and I, creating some issues beforehand, for the pipeline authoring team.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much for organizing this.
You're welcome.
So with that, we can wrap up today. Almost at time, I think that's a first. And I'll say for all the conversation, continue the conversation is synced, because I think we have way too many good things going on in our teams. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing, and I'll see you around. Bye.
Bye, everyone.